So in this observation process, this is an interactive time. I put this separate video together because I thought it was important to stop and think about our neighborhood around us and our city that we travel through every day. So as we go through these 6 slides, go ahead and pause, but this is a really good way to talk about the buildings themselves and why one is giving more value to another. Remember, think about if you were to lose one, which one would have the greater loss collectively within the city? What would have the greater impact? So I apologize up front. These videos are from the Google Street View and may differ in their quality, also in time of day. So some may be gray because of storms, or it may be sunny out. So try to ignore the environmental effects in the weather and environment and focus on the building structures themselves, about their quality and their purpose within a community or their street. So this starts off with the question, think of a structure right in your neighborhood. Imagine that if you woke up tomorrow morning, that building would be gone. Would it matter to the essence of place? How would your place change? And I thought this is a very good question in understanding the valuation of buildings in our environment. We tend not to give a lot of thought to this process in our buildings that surround us. We like buildings where we might look at things and think that new is good, old is bad, and not really understanding the differences and why we create different value. The purpose of all this is that I put together some slides to look at existing buildings and what would happen if you imagine one of those being demolished. What would you feel about them? So this is really a valuation process. Slide number 1, we look at 3rd and Riley, some of the commercial properties that are here. Slide number 2, we wander down 3rd Street and look at some residential buildings. Slide number 3 is in the Allison Hill area. Slide number 4 is in looking at Camp Curtin area and Uptown. Slide number 5 is a little unique because we've got a building out in the suburbs versus one that's in the city, but I'm looking at type of the mansion quality of houses. And slide number 6 is somewhat personal, coming into the Midtown area because we have a building that was demolished in the 80s that no one really knows any history about. A lot of the older folks within the neighborhood knows. This is the first thing I noticed whenever I came into Harrisburg and wondered what this was next to the Midtown Cinema. So when we look at this, we can understand some of the history that's happened. The reason I threw this in here is we have this very same predicament within Harrisburg. We have 10 United Methodist churches that have closed. How is that property going to be sold off? Unless they're on a historic register, there's no obligation to the city to do anything to it. And that's part of our problem. We're in this conundrum of old and new. And I have an example here in the list of a link back in West Philly where there was a housing project that was added to an existing church structure on site. So we've got to be a little bit more creative and innovative on this process. Part of the problem here, though, is that we've got to come to some decision of how do we treat our buildings. Because if we set a precedent for treating our buildings a specific way, buildings like we did with this Westminster Presbyterian Church, which was on the corner of Riley and Green, it becomes something that is no value to us and therefore gets demolished. And we've lost that embodied value that's there. So this is one place that I implore you, if you are living in Midtown or visit Midtown and visit the Flea, Harrisburg Flea, when you're on that parking lot, consider the amount of materials, labor that was put into the church that was there before everybody else. If we're not teaching our kids that the people and places matter and only teach them about the economic return on investment, we're cheating them out of a legacy that is really important to the overall history of Harrisburg. I hope you've enjoyed this little exercise. I hope you leave with this idea that our value of a city is within the collection of both the buildings as parts, but also the blocks and fabric as a whole, and that a valuation system is greater than any particular exchange of value for a particular parcel, that there's a holistic approach. And that goes back to this idea of triple bottom line of people, place, and economics. If you focus on the first two, the other part will follow. Thanks again and take care.